Hello,
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is Sultara. Chrism is having some difficulty getting on, and so we waited for a while in case he could, but it looks like it's not happening just now. So I am the host for a little while, and Chrism is going to try and phone in and use a different method of getting into the studio. So as I'm talking with you, I'm watching the studio. I can see that we've got Brooke here, we've got Rosemary here, and we have also got who I think is Joey here on the in the studio. And I will be watching for another number to come up, which hopefully will be Chrism. I also have the chat room open. And Phil, you're asking there if we're broadcasting. I hope you're hearing me, as is Magic Art, Mary Jean. Can you just let me know that I'm being heard? Thanks, guys. I'd appreciate that. Can you hear me? Just type, please. Okay, nobody's typing. I'm going to go over and I'm going to ask Brooke. One moment, guys. Hi, Brooke.
I can hear you loud and clear. Coming through clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so hopefully Chrism will be joining us. I will wait for a little while and see how it goes. So I'll put you back in blue then. So what am I going to do? This is what Chrism calls tap dancing. So I will need to, do you know what I'll do? I will actually talk a little bit about John of God and give you a little bit of background. I have a website here. I know some of you will know about John of God, and I was actually there myself as well. It was the first time that I ever met Chrism. What happened was, it was 2009, and I had discovered, or I was guided rather, to Chrism's website in June of 2009. And sometime later in that year, I came across information about John of God. I read about him, and I had a really, really strong resonance with my Kundalini. And I said, you know what, if John of God ever comes to Europe, or particularly if he comes to Ireland, I'm most definitely going to go and see him. And in those days, there was no Facebook, you know. It was way before that era. And it was Yahoo. Chrism's group was on Yahoo. And the following week, Chrism put up a post saying that he was going to be traveling to John of God in Brazil in February 2010. Well, wow, my Kundalini just so resonated within me. I knew that I was to go as well, so I'd like to go as well. Now, what's this? Can you hear a beep, guys? Okay, I don't know what that is. 1 second now. I feel like Chrism now. I'm looking at my device. Nothing is happening. Okay. So that's how I ended up going to John of God. And when I actually, there was a big group of us went from, oh, that's Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary.
Yes. Did you?
Oh, you just popped red there automatically. However that happened, I don't know. I'll put you back in the blue and I'll bring you on again later. I'm still waiting for Chrism to come. But what actually happened then was there was a group of people from around the world, maybe 10 of us, I can't quite remember, joined and said that they would also like to visit, to go with Chrism to John of God. So we all met in Brasilia, in the airport in Brasilia, and we all came from different places. I flew to Lisbon, and from Lisbon I flew directly into Brasilia. Other people flew into Sao Paulo and then up to Brasilia. And it was an incredible experience. Now, the interesting thing was Chrism at the time, I think it was almost a week before he joined us because there was some difficulty with it. But it was an incredible experience. And what's very interesting is I found my diary, actually, that I haven't read in years. I'm doing a lot of decluttering at the moment and getting rid of stuff. And I found my diary that I had written there. It's barely eligible because I had written a lot of it during the night, but very, very interesting. I had forgotten that I had a huge amount of Kundalini phenomena there, that I met entities there, and I described some of them. And also I had totally forgotten as well other incidents that happened. So it was really interesting. I've only just glanced at it. So what I'll do is I will wait. I don't know why the switchboard is doing this. It's doing it all of its own. I am going to read out a little bit about John of... I wonder if... That's really interesting. Okay, sorry guys. Let me just check the chat room. Hi, Mary Jean, can you hear me over there in the chat room? Would you mind letting me know? Should we stay or should we go? Darn. I'm just typing. Okay, I wonder, everything in the studio shows that I'm on air and everybody can hear me, and it looks like, yes, the clock is ticking down and everything looks as if I'm on air. So I'm just going to keep going and assume that I am on air. And apologies, guys, because we've been, nope. Okay, so Mary Jean, no. It looks like I am in the studio. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume and hope that I'm on air. And even if I'm not, very often this will be taped anyway. And Chrism will come on and the whole show will be saved. And he will speak about what is actually happening there currently in Brazil. Myself and Chrism did two checks with this. On Monday, he tried to get through and we were having huge difficulty. He could not do it. And we were able to speak on Viber and a little bit on Skype, but it was quite difficult and we couldn't connect. So what we did was we set up another show to see if it could be done on the Tuesday, a private show, and that worked. He got into the studio, we had a conversation, and so we were very excited that it was going to go ahead. So apologies, but this is totally beyond our control, and we're unable to do it. I think on Monday there was a torrential thunderstorm, and that seems okay. Chrism is trying to get in. 1 second, guys. Hi, Chrism. Oh, that's very interesting because I don't see you in the studio. 1 second. And I've asked in the, and you're on air now possibly, I have asked on the chat room and nobody can hear me. Now, you're not here. I can't see you here on the studio. Can you see the studio? And you see me. Now, that's me, the host, isn't it? Yeah. Where are you? I saw that earlier. Yeah, I was wondering, but that happens to me sometimes. Chrism, go out and try again. Go out and try again. Start talking. I can't hear you. Okay, let me do that. I'm sure if you're being heard, they'll type it in. Phil says he can hear me. So 1 second, Chrism. Guys, can you hear Chrism? So okay, guys. Chrism and myself there, I have no idea if any of that was heard or not heard. Chrism is going to try again. Apparently he can see the studio. He's in the studio, but I don't see him. He's not, typically phoning in. He's typically the host. and it's a different number. Anyway, we'll see if he'll come back in again or not. I'll know as soon as he starts manipulating the studio if he is in or not. So do you know what I'm going to do while I wait? I'm going to just tell you a little bit about John of God. We'll give it another 5 minutes. If Chrism doesn't come on, I'm just going to end the episode, okay? And let me just check the chat room. Yeah, nobody hears Chrism. Okay, guys in the chat room, thank you very much. Thank you, Atlantic Theatre. What we'll do is we'll give it another 5 minutes and hopefully Chrism will be able to get on. So in the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about the history from an objective point of view. I'm going to read it. John of God, or João Teixeira, something or other, he was born in 1942 in a small village in central Brazil, and his father was a tailor. And despite his efforts working as a tailor, his family were faced with hunger and poverty. And as a child, he himself displayed clairvoyant abilities. And because of his innate rebellion, his formal education was cut short after only 2 years. And they say perhaps this was a blessing in disguise, because that allowed him to develop in such a way as to better serve the future that was ahead for him. It was not until João was a teenager that his life was transformed forever. At 16, he traveled to Campo Grande to begin a job as a tailor. And for unknown reasons, the job was terminated on its first day. With the reality of hunger and poverty staring João in the face, he was filled with despair. He went swimming to a nearby creek to refresh himself and to wash away his anxieties. Just checking there, no sign of Chrism. Okay, so then suddenly he heard a voice call his name, and he was amazed to see a beautiful fair-haired woman next to a tree. He sat near her and they spoke for a long time. Later that night, João realized that she was Saint Rita of Casa. With many questions still unanswered, he returned to the same spot next morning, hoping to speak with her. A beam of light sparkled in the place where she had stood, and her voice then emerged from the light. She instructed him to go to a spirited center in town where the people there were expecting him. Not understanding the meaning of this at all, he nevertheless did what he was told. Let me just check again. Nope, no sign of Chrism. Nevertheless, he did what he was told. Let me just see, where am I? Sorry, guys. Oh, what happens then? When he arrived at the church, members were indeed expecting him. Then João lost consciousness. When he woke up a few hours later, he apologized for passing out and explained that it was due to hunger. To João's surprise, a senior member told him he had not merely passed out, but that he had incorporated the spirit of King Solomon. He went on to say that in those 3 hours that he couldn't remember, João had healed many people and performed amazing surgeries. João naturally thought this was a mistake, but after he was served a meal and more discussion took place, João began to reflect on the possibility that this could indeed be true. So began the spiritual career of João de Deus, John of God, as he is affectionately known, whose healings have benefited hundreds of thousands of people throughout the world. João in entity has also operated on himself. After he suffered a heart some years ago, the entities did a physical surgery on his body. This was a truly remarkable event, given the fact that João hates the sight of blood. Luckily for him, as usual, with all the work he does in entity, he had no recollection of the operation. João's reputation is now established as one of the most extraordinary healers of our time. There have been numerous documentaries about João and his gifts. The Casa in Brazil is not a magic bullet. It is a place where the entities, with our efforts, help us make energetic shifts with the complexities of our karma and other factors. They have the power to shift and raise our vibration and manipulate our energy field for the better. It is not a place where one-time healing fixes everything. Their entities that are clear. Their entities are very clear when they say, there is no magic here, go to work. And that is just a little bit of background on John of God. And I am so sorry, guys. You know, I mean, I could do other stuff. I could read stuff from my diary, blah, blah, blah. But really and truly, that's not what the show is about. The show was really to be, you know, from Chrism, perhaps Vincent, I don't know, maybe other guests. I haven't heard anything. Hold on, I have a message from Chrism coming through Viber. 2326. Keep it going, he says. Okay. I will keep it going for another little while then. Maybe he can hear me. Okay, so what else can I say? So what's very interesting, let me tell you a little bit about my own experience there initially. After we all met and we came to I can't ever pronounce that word. It starts with the letter A, where the Casa is. Casa means the house of. Ignatius de Loyola. What is the name of the little town? It escapes me. Anyway, when we went there, we were all booked into a hotel, a small hotel, and it was a very, very small town. It wasn't even a town or a village. It was one street with a few hotels on it and maybe a shop and a cafe, and that was it really. And I remember the very first day that we came out in the morning, I think we arrived, maybe we arrived on a Monday. John of God is present in the Casa on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, and on a Friday. I think they're the 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, yeah. And there are some protocols, so everybody has to dress in white, and this is, you know, right down to your underwear white. It's one of the protocols that's given. So everybody, of course, their suitcases are packed with white clothes. And I remember the first day after breakfast coming out onto the street and watching people walking down the street very slowly. And it was very surreal. I thought, wow, what am I doing here? It was like something out of the Twilight Zone, you know, just people walking very slowly, almost as if they were entranced, all wearing white clothing. And I found myself joining them and walking slowly down towards the Casa. I think we were maybe 4 or 5 or 6, maybe, you know, buildings back. We were very near to the Casa. And it's painted in blue and white, and when you walk in, it's very different to anything I had ever seen before. And when you walk in, you know, it takes a little while to become orientated to it. And the language there is Portuguese. So Portuguese is something that I had absolutely, you know, no experience of it whatsoever. And so for that reason, I couldn't understand any of the signs. And what one does, you know, so how do communications happen? Well, what happens then is, let's say John of God is going to be there. You decide what it is you want healing for. It can be physical healing, emotional healing. It can be anything. I mean, one does not need to be unwell or sick or have an illness. One just might want to bring change into one's life. One might want healing for something in the past or just emotional balance. There's so many reasons that people come to the Casa. It's not always about, you know, people who are dying or are very, very unwell. People come for many reasons. And so what you do is there are pieces of paper and you write your request. You write what it is you want to ask for on a piece of paper. And then there is a line, and you what happens is when there are so many other things that happen, but I get straight to when you meet John of God. And this doesn't happen immediately. There's a few other things that you do first. But when you come to meet John of God, there is a line, and people are called into this line in groups. So you join the line, and you go through what's known as the current room. And in there are people deep in meditation, and they're holding the current or the vibration of the room at a very, very high spiritual, pure vibration, so that as people move through, this helps the entities that are there and the entity that is coming through John of God. And John of God, the entity, there's always just one entity comes through him each time. So he himself is called the entity, and that entity can be different each day, or from morning to evening when he is seen. So you join this line, and as you come into the current room, and certainly as I came into the current room, my goodness, the energy and the... Am I getting more messages? What's the sign in, please? Okay, here we go. 2 seconds, guys. I'm just sending a message to Chrism. This is looking good. I'm giving him the code. Yay. Okay, I hope he got that. Okay, guys, thank you for your patience. It looks like Chrism might be about to come in. Oh, did he get that? 3-6. Okay, so I hope he's after getting that communicate. Oh, shoot. Sorry, people. 1 second. 1 second now, guys. Thank you very much. I'm typing at the same time. Okay, so you write the piece of paper, on the piece of paper your request, and as you go up, there are people on either side of John of God, and they take the piece of paper that you've written. Shoot, 1 second now. Okay, I have that done. I'm trying to remember, I wrote it in English, that's right, and they bring it up. I bring it up and I hand it to them. And I think there's a few there that speak, Spanish or English, or do they convert it first into Portuguese? Do you know what? I can't remember that. But anyway, my request is there and it's handed. No, because they speak... I think they tell John of God what it is, yeah. And I was looking at my diary last night, and when I went up for the first time, John of God put out his hand to me, and I put my hand in his hand, and then he said to me, I wish I had it in front of me. He spoke to me anyway. And I wasn't given that I was going to have an operation at all. I was to take the herbs. And what was very interesting was I heard John of God speak to me in English, and it wasn't until sometime later I realized, because somebody told me, that he doesn't speak any English at all. And yes, I certainly heard him in English, and that would be just an example of one of the amazing things that would have happened to me, You might be directed to go to the current room. I think that's Chrism again. Okay, Chrism, I heard a beep, but I'm not seeing you in the studio. Can you manipulate one of the, say, Rosemary, turn her from blue into red, and I'll know you're in the studio. Or say something, and I will check if it's been heard in the chat room. Okay, there's nothing happening. Darn. Okay, so anyway, so what happens then is So you're directed to, you might be told, go into the current room, which is that room where everybody sits and meditates. And you might be directed to just go get the herbs, or that you're going to have an operation. Or there's another room where one time I was sent for a spiritual healing. So you're directed into different places. Now, an operation can be invisible or visible. And if any of you have Googled or looked on YouTube, you will actually see John of God doing operations where he uses a knife, and it looks like a steak knife. I mean, it's amazing. It's not a surgical knife. And he does some operations with that. You know, I've seen him remove a lump from a woman's breast. And he does other stuff as well. But anyway. But also there's invisible surgery done, where the entity will come and will actually do surgery on the body, but it's invisible. But the person, let's call them the patient, is in their bedroom perhaps, and you will actually feel, and this is what happens to me, you will actually feel, almost like you're receiving anesthesia, and you will be exhausted, you will be, you won't remember. It's very much like the way a person would be if they were receiving surgery, and they will be weak afterwards. And when you go back to your room, if you receive a surgery or a spiritual healing in the Casa, you have to stay in your room and not speak to anybody for 24 hours. Is it 24 or 12? I think it's 24 hours, because I remember I was in the middle of that when Chrism arrived at the Casa back in 2010. And the only thing you're allowed to eat is soup that is made in the Casa. And one of the wonderful things that I did the following week is you can help to make the soup. And that reminds me of the time that myself and our group down in Peru, we actually helped to prepare the cactus, the time that we were having the, what was it called, the San Pedro cactus ceremony. And there was a few of us. Do you remember, Elizabeth and Brooke? We were down outside, and we helped to prepare it. And in doing that, that's a very mindful thing, and you're giving a service, and you're involved in the healing and the radiance and all of that. And that is something that you can do in the Casa as well. You can be involved in preparing the soup, and it's a wonderful gift. And as always, you receive so much back, because that of itself is a meditation. But anyway, so you drink the soup and you don't speak with anybody, and you allow the entities to do the work. And the amazing thing is the entities are extremely tactile. I mean, you will feel their presence. You will be touched. At least this is my experience, guys, and other people would say the same. You will be touched by the entities, and you will know that they're present. When I was in the current room, 2 entities visited me there, and this is from reading my diary. The first one, I said there was the first one, and the second one was either an adult kneeling down or a small child, and I had a conversation with them, and it was about wanting to be of service, and it was amazing for me to read that. And I have described as well in the diary some of the entity experiences, and it's amazing. And that's why, I'm sad that Chrism or Vincent aren't here to tell you their experience of it, because it's ongoing with them at the moment. And I'm dying to hear, the changes. Chrism said to me the other night that there's a lot more hotels. It reminded him a little bit of Lourdes now, that there's a lot of more commercialism happening on the street. And between the hotel that we stayed in and the Casa, I think he said they were 7, 8, 9 new hotels now built. So I suppose things change, because when Chrism visited it in 2010, that was his third visit there, I think. And he was telling us back then how things had changed a lot as well from his first visit. So, you know, I suppose there's development and change all the time. I'm just checking as I'm talking with you guys, and there is no further message from Chrism. Chrism, I'm thinking of, you know, stopping this now. So, do you think, can you hear me? And can you send me another message on Viber? Are you going to get through, do you think? I've given him the password to get in, and there's still no sign of him. So guys, I don't really know what else to do. Yeah, so what else? So another thing, of course, I think Chris mentioned last week, when you visit the Casa, you can't have sex for 40 days. I don't know if it's 40 days from your time of arrival or 40 days from the time of your operation. I can't remember. And you have to take the herbs, which is passion flower. And what actually happens is when you go in front of the entity, which is John of God, the entity writes on a piece of paper. Oh, I hope my memory is correct here now, because I tend to let things go when they're gone. But the entity writes on a piece of paper. It just takes a second or two. And you bring that then over to the pharmacy. And my understanding is that the passion flower, that of itself is the same in all the bottles. But it is the actual communication from the entity onto the paper through what John of God has written, bringing it to the pharmacy and getting the herbs, we'll call them. That is where we will say the intention happens, and the agreement that you make that you will take these tablets, that you will take this. It's part of what you agreed to do. It's part of the protocol. And so as I said, that everybody's, the passion flower, the herbs are very different for everybody. They are not the same. And that is part of what happens there with regard to the medicine that we're given. And I think you take the medicine for 30 to 60 days. Again, memory, I know I brought back some with me the last time. So what else can I tell you about it? Let me see. I'm going to actually now go over to, I'll start here with Brooke. Hi, Brooke.
Hi there. Hi,
Okay, so I've been tap dancing.
Oh, you've done very well. Thank you so much.
I'm not feeling very positive that Chrism is going to come on, but let's keep it going for another short while, okay? And if he doesn't come on soon, I'll end the show.
Yeah,
you know. Is there anything that you'd like to say about anything, or?
Yeah, sometimes I've tried to stay on here because I feel like, I wanted to add if I needed to or help out in the situation, because I think it's so frustrating you can't get on. But
I know.
Yeah,
I can imagine he must be really frustrated.
Yeah. Well, he's only in Brazil. What can we expect? But
recently I've been taking the herbs. John of God has another site where you can do a long-distance remote healing with the entity if you are not able to get down to Brazil and you're not able to get down to Abu. And so what you do is you send a picture in, and the picture gets passed in front of the entity, whichever entity is working with John of God on that day, and then they send you the herbs. And I have to say, it's been bombastic and powerful. And
have you been doing that, Brooke?
So I've been doing this since December 9th. So I've been undergoing this with the herbs for over a month now, And, and it's very intense also with Chrism being down there. So it's kind of like, I'm not sure. And also you add the Kundalini aspect into it. So it's been beautiful and very, amazing. And today, actually, there's so much stuff coming up. There's so much purification happening. I can't even tell you. But they are, this is so beautiful. What you were saying, very tactile. These entities, they'll come into beautiful, lovely beings. It's incredible what I'm going through. So what they've done is they've sent me the herbs, and I take them 3 times a day. It's passion flower. And, it's just been...
Well, that's wonderful. And it's interesting because I've actually sent my photograph down there too, and it's going in front of John of God, the entity, tomorrow.
Yes.
And then they're sending me the passion flower after that. So I'll be doing that as well. I didn't realize you were doing it too. Wow.
Yeah, it's been really amazing, and I still have a ways to go. There's something like 100.
How many? Yeah, how many days? How long? How many days?
55 days that you take the. So, I've had a lot go on with purification and anything that's going to further my Kundalini is what they're working on, I believe. But that's what I asked. You send the picture down, and I think, did you ask you gave your request of what you needed assistance with?
Yes, I did. I did. The last time I was there, I didn't ask for any. I asked for, it was general. It was for my very much like what you were saying. It was for my spiritual, mental, emotional, all of that development with Kundalini and all of that. This time I am actually asking for a specific thing to do with my thyroid. So
good.
So we will see how.
We'll see. It's exciting. I mean, because it's so powerfully strong. It's so strong. For me, this has been my experience.
I believe it is, though. It's the best. It's the next best thing if you can't go there. And the entities are just as powerfully present with you as they are in Brazil, Brooke. My understanding is that you don't have to be there. So, at all, that is, you're not diminished by the fact that you're there in America.
I think that's true. Although there is that aspect of being there in the current room, live there, that we can't.
Oh God,
obviously.
Of course. Of course.
But if you can't do that, and I think that just it's for people that are having like very tough Kundalini phases where they're going through very, very hard points with their Kundalini. It can be so healing for that. Like I know that young woman, Feta is down there now.
Feta.
With Chrism, and she apparently goes every year, which I thought was great. And
she does.
She talks about how this has just helped grounded her Kundalini equation because it's been so difficult at certain points, which I think we can all relate. So I think it's very helpful to do this if one feels compelled, and I certainly did.
And that's really interesting too, the compulsion to do it, because my going down there came as a compulsion. I had to go. It came before I knew Chrism was going, and then Chrism announced he was going, and it was, and this time I would very much go down there. I feel a big pull to go down there, but I can't. I just cannot afford it. And I said to my Kundalini, you just have to provide for me if I'm to go down there. And I got very clearly that I was to do the long distance healing. So, and it's, Yeah, so I've only just done that last week, applied, and it's this Thursday. It's tomorrow, actually. So,
so
can I ask you, Brooke? Say again?
Your picture goes in front tomorrow. That's great. That's exciting.
Yes, tomorrow.
That my picture went in front. I had a normal evening, and then that night when I was in bed, I felt nauseous and really like it was strange because I had, way before that time, hours before that, I had nothing in my stomach. So I kind of struggled with it a little bit and was nauseous, and went into my this and everything, and then I just went to the toilet and up it came, and that was the first night of my picture being passed. And I know it had to that, and that was the beginning of the purge for me. Very intense ever since. So back to the details.
Oh, wow. Because I was going to ask you, Brooke, because apparently for me, I've been given a time, and it's going to be happening 12:30 New York time. So that'll be about 5:30 p.m. here. And I've been thinking, should I just continue or should I go into meditation? I'm feeling pulled to go into quiet for a little while. So I'm wondering, you're saying you didn't, but that night, at the time.
I did when the picture was passed. I just did a little prayer to John of God and the entity and let them know that I'm in a receptive, and I had the time to do it. A lot of people don't do it, and it's just because they don't have the time. Maybe they're at work or whatever, but I did have the time, so I did do that. And then every day since, I've made sure that I've added a little prayer into them.
Yes, of gratitude as well. Yeah, wow. I must say, Brooke, thank you for sharing that. I had come to you sooner. That's wonderful.
I know I was trying to get through, but there's no way to say, anyway.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Well, I mean, Chrism can decide if we'll keep this episode or not. There's no sign of him. I'm going to go
Sorry, he just texted me. I think he's not going to get through. He's given up on that. So.
I've just seen it here as well. Yeah, he's after texting me too. He apologizes. Major apologies to everybody. He's not very happy. He's sad not to have been with you all. So I can just imagine him doing his absolute best, and it's very frustrating when that happens. So love and blessings to him. And well, then I guess we'll call it a halt. Who else have we got here? We've got. No, I think I won't. I think we'll just. Anything else to add, Brooke?
No, I don't. And my phone is getting ready to die. So
okay.
I'm glad it didn't die this whole time. That's good. But,
thank you for that.
Much.
Thank you for that.
Nice to talk with you.
Maybe people could, just contemplate on that for a while and see, how all of what Brooke has shared there as well resonates with their Kundalini. And I think Chrism is going to be there again next week, but I don't know what the story is going to be, whether he's going to make it or what the actual problem was for him tonight. I know that on the Monday when we were doing this show, Brooke, and we were trying to set it up, there was a torrential downpour. They have incredible rain there, tropical rain, and it was really, really difficult. But then last night, he got in no problem. So maybe it'll depend, on the reason. I don't know. So, guys, I'm going to finish it here. Will you do an with me, Brooke?
Sure.
Okay, so goodbye, everybody. Love to you all in the chat room, to Rosemary, to Joey, to everybody who's listening. Have no clue if this will be in the archives or not. And so myself and Brooke will both love and blessings to you all. Okay. Ah.